Hello, thank you so much for taking the time to come in today to interview for our international photojournalist for the New York Times. We're really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super grateful for this opportunity.
Great, thank you. So just by way of introduction, we'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Samantha Vanderwalker. I am from South Carolina. I started studying broadcast when I was actually in high school, and that's what piqued my interest. I spent a lot of time in college studying international studies, religious freedom, and I worked at my college newspaper for 2 years.
Wow, thank you very much. So here at the New York Times, we rely heavily on our photo team to provide captivating pictures for our audience. And we want to know why this company is the best fit for you.
One thing about the New York Times that I really like is that there's a focus on integrity, truth, and quality work. And that's something that's really important to me. That's something that I was raised being taught, and I think the world has a right to good, quality, honest work.
Wonderful, thank you. What do you think the responsibility is of a photojournalist? Just the job description.
One thing I love about journalism is that there's really a focus on being a voice for the voiceless. That's one thing that they taught a lot at my college paper, is that we really have an opportunity to bring light to situations that other people might not have the voice to say. That's one thing that I really love about journalism and what I think is important.
Wonderful, thank you. So how would you decide what is too graphic to show in a visual form and what is not too graphic?
That's definitely a hard question. As a journalist, you have a responsibility to show what's going on, but you also have a responsibility to your viewers to make sure that they're not, being overwhelmed by the things that they could see. One thing that we did at my college paper, I was one of the photo editors, and we would make a decision on if something was questionable or controversial, whether to print it or not. And if we did decide to print that, we would, say viewer discretion is advised. This picture could contain gore, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. So what is your experience with social media? This could be marketing experience or not.
I worked as a website manager and a photographer for a formal wear store. That's kind of what got me started in the social media aspect of it. I run my own website and Instagram account for photojournalism. I think growing up in an age where there's been so much advancements in social media, I think I've had a really great opportunity to be able to use social media as a platform to really spread the word about, what stories I'm writing, or, the photos that I'm taking, the events that I'm being able to cover.
Wonderful. So how would you stay up to date on journalism news, or how do you stay up to date on news in general?
Well, I have a subscription to the New York Times, of course, and also the Wall Street Journal. I try to also follow CNN and Fox News, kind of cover all the bases, because unfortunately there is a bias in news media, and I think as a journalist it's important for you to be able to see every aspect of an event that's going on and to remain unbiased as much as you can. Of course, we all have our personal beliefs and preferences, but I definitely try to keep up on several multimedia social media accounts.
Okay, wonderful. Will you remind me what your major is?
My major is communication, specifically an emphasis in news and journalism, and I also have another module in public relations.
Wonderful. So what classes have you taken that would apply to this position?
It hasn't been in the communication department, but I've taken world religions and religious freedom. I think those have given me kind of a push to understand people around the world that don't necessarily have the beliefs that I do, and the laws and the importance of religious freedom. That's one thing that's really piqued my interest, especially as there's been, ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, and, they're having to flee to Bangladesh. That's something that's been really heavily covered by a lot of news outlets like Al Jazeera and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. I think those classes have really helped me to understand the importance of everyone's story and why we should tell it.
Thank you. So give me an example of a time you had to work under pressure and what was the outcome for you?
Well, like I said, I was one of the photo editors at my college paper. We found out about 2 days before that the Westboro Baptist Church was actually going to come and protest
Wow.
around our campus and basically picket our beliefs and that the beliefs that the school holds. And we had to get a story cranked out really fast, had to get some photographers up there and really do our research. We decided, because we were a church-sponsored school, that we wouldn't run a story because publicity is kind of something that a group like Westboro Baptist Church runs off of. But it was a really good opportunity to be able to go into a situation where I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable and have people yelling at me and saying all sorts of things that could be provoking, but really taking a step back and doing research and having to work under pressure to work with them.
Wonderful, thank you. So what are some skills that you possess that would make you a good fit as an international photojournalist for the New York Times?
I grew up with my parents cultivating a love of different cultures and travel. I've been insanely blessed to be able to go to different countries in the world and be able to experience just the way of life that other people are living and get to learn their struggles. I think one thing that makes me qualified is my love for people and the fact that I believe everyone has a story that can be told. There's so often that people get caught up in our own lives, getting a job, having a family, getting a house. We get we kind of put on blinders and we don't really think about, well, what is that person going through? And I find people so fascinating. I think that's one thing that can give me a leg up, is that I'm willing to do what it takes to get a story and learn about someone.
What countries have you been to?
I've been to Mexico several times and I love Mexico. I love the people. I've been to Canada, so our neighbors. England, France, Sicily, which is the lowest island in Italy, and Switzerland.
Oh, that's really cool.
So definitely all different sorts of walks of life, but it's been so amazing.
Oh, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
So in worker school, could you tell me a time where you had to take initiative in a task, and how did you stay motivated to complete that task?
So when I was at the newspaper, I reference the newspaper a lot, but I've done it for so long that it's such a big part of me now. The first semester that I got hired on as part of the photo staff, I was an assistant editor, and I was personally put in charge of 3 of our photographers. Well, we had some breaking news come up. We actually had a student drown, and we had to get a story out for breaking news in 10 minutes. And so it really took a lot of work to kind of explain the situation. This is what happened. Here's how we need to go about it. It's definitely a tough situation when things like that come up. But if you can learn to do it right and in a way that's still respectful and can get the news out there, then I think that's a great opportunity, despite the unfortunate circumstances that it can happen.
Wow, thank you. So why do you want to become an international photojournalist?
That's a hard question because there's so many things that I love about just people and the world, and I think news is such an important aspect that people need to know about. We need to be aware of our surroundings, even if it's not right within our country, There's a quote and it says, if you don't learn about the past, then you're bound to repeat it. And I think if we can get people that are willing to document the good, the bad, and the ugly, then we can learn from that.
I believe that too, thank you. Just to wrap things up, what would you like us to remember about you for the international photojournalist position at the New York Times?
I'm ready to go and willing to go whenever I'm needed. I keep my camera by the door, and there's an excitement in being able to bring the world something.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview with us today. We will let you know our hiring decisions within the next week. And we have really enjoyed getting to know you today. Thank you so
Also,
much.
thank you so much for your time.